The story begins with Momo's father asking her to deliver medicine to the Verdigris house. Momo tries to clean up a wound from one of her drug experiments, and one of the famous princesses of this house named Perrin greets her. Momo's grandmother asks her if she'd like to be a courtesan and encourages Momo to leave. She admits this is a daily thing with her grandmother and Momo doesn't want anything to do with that occupation. Momo toys around in the garden and gets kidnapped by 3 men. Meanwhile, Lady Liyue gives birth to the nation's prince, and 3 months passes by and Momo's concerned about her father. Since being kidnapped, Momo believes she was ransomed or sold off to someone and misses her old life as an apothecary. She tells about the rear palace and she says it holds a garden of women who give birth to the emperor's children and don't allow men. Momo claims only the emperor, his kin and eunuchs can enter the rear palace. She says the serving girls are disposable. After she points her co-worker Xiaolin in the right direction, Momo continues explaining the rear palace lifestyle. She says most servants are illiterate. Despite her status, Momo would rather work in the lower class, get paid, and leave in 2 years than work toward a higher palace rank. We cut to Lady Liyue and her child, who looks ill. 2 gentlemen, one being Master Jinshi, converse about her condition and notice another woman's child is in poor condition. Jinshi tells her the physician is busy and may not have time to cater to her daughter, Xiaolin. While some servants gossip about the princess and her kin's illness, Xiaolin and her discuss a rear palace curse. Xiaolin states all 3 of the emperor's children have died due to illnesses, and says the doctor visited Lady Jiuqiu and Liyue and confirmed they're in terrible shape, confirming the curse's legitimacy. They discuss how Liyue is the emperor's current consort, meaning she's a very important figure to the emperor. Despite giving birth to his son, Xiaolin says there's a rumor brewing that the emperor likes Jiuqiu more. Momo senses a power struggle at play and ponders over Liyue's illness, and although she doesn't want to get involved, something urges her to look into Liyue's situation more. Suddenly, Momo notices Liyue and Jiuqiu confront each other publicly and questions why the doctor hasn't figured out a cure for their illnesses. She examines the situations closely and believes she knows the answer to their problems, but she doesn't know how to convey this intel to Liyue and Jiuqiu. Unfortunately, Liyue's son passes away. A month passes and Jinshi visits Jiuqiu to ask her something, and Jiuqiu tells Jinshi that when she visited the Crystal Pavilion to have her daughter examined, she found a note attached to a rhododendron plant. It said not to let any babies near the plant since the white face power it holds is poisonous, and she asks Jinshi to uncover who sent the note. Jinshi has a hunch Momo sent the letter after briefly encountering her during Liyue and Jiuqiu's scuffle. Meanwhile, a man tells Momo she must report to the matron of the serving women immediately with other serving girls. Jinshi introduces himself as the palace's manager as all the girls except Momo adore his dashing looks. Jinshi tells the other girls to leave except for Momo, and she realizes Jinshi signaled her out since she's the only servant who can read. Jinshi brings Momo to Jiuqiu's room and she thanks her for saving Shiling's life with the note. Momo says she may have mistaken her for someone else, but Jinshi takes out the note and says the fabric the person used to create it is made from the clothing serving girls wear. Jinshi asks Momo to explain why she put the flower on the windowsill, and Momo explains how the high-end powder courtesans used which led to Jiuqiu, Liyue, and their children's illnesses. Momo says she used to work as an apothecary and knows about things of this nature. Jiuqiu presents Jinshi with a specific power the nurse used for her child, and she reveals she tried telling Liyue about the message, but Liyue wouldn't pay her any mind. Jiuqiu tells Momo she'll be her new lady-in-waiting, also known as female assistant. Momo leaves and panics because she wants to keep a low profile. We see 2 soldiers falling ill due to poison being inserted in their food. A man named Gaoshan informs Jinshi of this matter and says the village leader is in custody due to possibly aiding the barbarians. They discuss Jiuqiu and Momo's current working relationship, and Jinshi confirms Jiuqiu has 4 female servants working for her while Liyue has over 10. Although this makes Jiuqiu look lesser than Liyue, they state how Jiuqiu is more wise and cautious. Jinshi tells Gaoshan he'll keep an eye on Momo to prevent her from using her apothecary knowledge for nefarious purposes. Jinshi tries seducing Momo the following day and asks her to serve Jiuqiu well. Momo meets Hongying, Jiuqiu's head lady-in-waiting. Shows her around the Jade Pavilion. She meets the other lady-in-waiting named Yinghua, Gyun, and Alan. They tell Momo that Jiuqiu doesn't have servant girls and has her ladies-in-waiting perform tasks for her, and Momo offers to help, but the girl says she must go to her room as Jiuqiu has a special task for her. The girls gossip about Momo's arm wound a bit as Momo sits in her room and ponders, and Jinshi tells Momo that she's tasked with tasting poison. He says her previous tester used to get poisoned by the meals people prep for her, and Jiuqiu herself got poisoned a few times. As she tests the food for poison, Momo confirms she experimented with many toxic chemicals back home and grew an immunity to poison. Jinshi and the others are baffled by Momo's enjoyment of the task, and Momo tells Hongying it's best to switch to silver plates since they react to poison. Hongying says she should have mentioned her apothecary background when she arrived here because she would have gotten paid more. Momo says she refused to let people know of her knowledge because she didn't want her kidnappers to make money off of her genius. Hongying gives Momo her payment for the day and Momo realizes it's almost equal to her regular salary, but this money won't go to her kidnappers. We see Momo performing more poison testing duties and she started to grow bored with it all, and Jinshi tasks Momo with testing some buns he received from someone and Momo says they're safe. However, Jinshi doesn't want to indulge in them and tells Momo about the incident involving the soldiers and the village leader. Momo asks him about the location they ate at and what utensils they used, and she presents him with a theory regarding the firewood the soldiers used during their feast and says it could have had poison in it. Jinshi asks Momo if she can make an aphrodisiac and Momo's excited by the task and says she can do it. Momo leaves the next day to visit the palace's doctor in Gaoshan. He leads her to a room where she can make the aphrodisiac, and as she attempts to make it, she notices they've supplied her with less cacao than expected. They supply her with more ingredients and Momo completes the dish, but she decides to make some brownies with it and stores them away in secret. When she returns to the area, Hongying scolds her because the other lady in waiting ate the brownies and experienced side effects. After presenting the aphrodisiac and other drugs to Gyokyu, Jinshi praises Momo for her effort in a tense way, but we see a strange man looking at a female from a distance. Yinghua, Gyuan, and Alan performing cleaning tasks and reminiscing about their time spent here so far. One of them checks on Momo and discusses a rumor about the mysterious spirit that's haunting the rear palace. Momo meets with Seolin to discuss this rumor further, and Momo contemplates if this is a hoax or if there's actual spirit at play here, but she deduces it's a mere ghost story and she and Seolin have nothing to fear. Momo visits the rear palace's doctor and informs the audience that he treats her with care despite the tension they had before. Jinshi interrupts Momo's meal session and Momo wonders why he keeps bothering her, and Momo wonders if Jinshi has a higher position at the palace than he lets on because he's always roaming around like he's got nothing better to do. Jinshi asks Momo if there's a curse for sleepwalking other than medicine, and Momo promises to get to the bottom of the spirit issue. Gaoshan escorts Momo somewhere and asks her if she can stop looking down upon Jinshi. Gaoshan introduces Momo to concubine Fuyu, who will be bestowed to a military officer as a reward soon, and the doctor informs Momo that Fuyu, a skilled dancer, stumbled during her first showing, and the emperor pays her no mind, and he explains this led to her sleepwalking issue because she was shocked she was being treated as a reward. Momo and Gaoshan leave and spy on Fuyu. Momo compares her to a cotton rose and it's the ability to change states, and she asks Seolin to explain the spirit story more to her. Seolin brings up Fuyu appearing from the north side and Momo comes up with a theory. Momo meets with Gyokyu to discuss sleepwalking and how Fuyu's situation with it could relate to a case she recalls involving a woman at a brothel from her past. Momo concludes that Fuyu needs someone to help her cancel the exchange deal to solve her sleepwalking dilemma. Momo states that Fuyu was ordered to never leave her room and eunuchs were in charge of watching her. A few days pass and Gyokyu notices something wrong with Momo, and as Momo watches Fuyu leave the rear palace, Gyokyu confronts Momo about her internal issues. Momo is worried about Fuyu's fate involving the emperor and her beloved military officer. Momo and Gyokyu watch as Fuyu reunites with the officer and heads off. Momo wonders what type of medicine would love to make as someone confronts Gyokyu in her quarters, and the man telling Gyokyu he has a request for Momo. We see Liua's female entourage scolding Momo for bringing her low-class food, and she reflects on why she's in the presence of these women in the first place. After doing some poison checkups for the emperor, he tasks Momo with looking after Liua. Momo's surprised Liua's staff are treating her poorly since she's serving her under imperial orders. Momo discusses her task with Seolin and she assumes Liua is still suffering from the poison. Momo visits the kitchen to help Liua's cooks whip up a dietary meal for Liua to expel the poison in her body, but she keeps getting rejected by Liua's servants because they deem her meals inadequate. Momo acknowledges the meals they want to feed her but feels they're too heavy for Liua's weakened stomach, and Jinshi notices Momo's struggles and entices Liua's servants to let Momo assist Liua with her sickly problems. Momo notices something on Liua's face and notices something off about her makeup. She approaches one of her servants and slaps one of them for their foolish actions, and Momo drags them aside and pours the makeup the woman used on Liua on the servant. She reminds the woman that the makeup is poison and that she shouldn't be using it on Lihua, and Momo orders the servant to wash their face and for the others to clean up the mess she made. While Momo treats Lihua and guides Lihua's ladies-in-waiting, she confirms the woman who hid the powder got put in confinement, and as for the eunuch who recovered the powder, he was punished for flagellation. Lihua asks Momo why she won't let her die, and Momo says she could simply stop eating, but she knows Lihua continues eating her meals because she wants to live. Suddenly, the lady-in-waiting who got put in confinement tells Momo she's allowed to serve Lihua again. She asks Momo to get rest and promises not to make the same mistake again. After 2 months, Lihua makes a decent recovery, finding the strength to walk again, but before Momo leaves, Lihua asks her if she thinks she can give birth to children again. Momo says she can try but can't give her a solid answer, and Lihua realizes the Emperor doesn't care for her as much as Gyokyu, but Momo thinks she might still have a chance. Momo whispers to Lihua, stating she should use her bodily charm to seduce the Emperor, but we see someone from the royal palace suffering from a curse. Jinshi sparring with a man named Basin, and the next day he ponders the scenario involving Lady Lihua's lady-in-waiting and Momo. Momo finds a special ingredient she's been searching for, but before she uses it for her purposes, she visits Xiaolin and shares a meal with her. After gossiping about a rumor with her, Momo visits the palace's doctor and informs him of the mushroom she found during her break, and he helps her make a meal out of it. Suddenly, a person from the palace enters the room and informs the doctor about a curse that spread to his hands, and Momo examines the man's wound and thinks it's a weird rash. The doctor asks Momo if she can make an ointment for the gentleman. While Momo is preparing the ointment, the man explains the origins behind his issue to her and the doctor, and Momo says it must be related to fireworks and says her ointment should help the man out. Jinshi arrives and asks Momo to follow him somewhere to discuss more about the rash issues. After helping him out, Momo leaves, but Jinshi tasks her with making him some of that mushroom stew she had with the doctor. While alone, Momo ponders the colored wood tablets that are related to the rash issues cropping up in the palace, and she wonders if it has to be code-related. Momo returns to Gyokyu's residence and her lady-in-waiting friends give her a dress she's required to wear at the upcoming garden party, and they explain 2 other concubines will be attending the party besides Lihua and Gyokyu. They're named Lishu and Ah Duo. Gyokyu tells Momo everyone must comply with the Emperor's demands but can do anything they please at the party, and Momo heads to her office to create things that'll help her prepare for the festivities. Hongning enters her quarters and Momo shows her a neat underrobe that'll help her stay warm at the party. She asks Momo if she can make one for everyone and Momo complies. Meanwhile, someone informs Jinshi that they're not finding any luck in recovering people who suffered from the rash. Jinshi meets with the other concubines before speaking with Gyokyu, and he notices Momo's freckles are gone and admires her new look. Momo reveals she's always worn makeup in every encounter, but instead of wanting to look beautiful, she made herself uglier to avoid complications with sexual deviance. Jinshi apologizes for not helping Momo deal with her kidnappers, but she says it's okay. Jinshi bestows Momo with his hairpin, and she asks the girls and Gyokyu what it means when a man does so. The party officially begins and we see a glimpse of a woman in the dark. Momo and Xiaolin observing the festivities behind a curtain, and Xiaolin points out Empress Dowager and tells Momo she gave birth to the Emperor and his brother, but his brother was too sick to attend the garden party. Afterwards, the two stumble upon an argument between Gyokyu and Lihua's ladies-in-waiting groups, and Momo ends the fight by reminding one of Lihua's ladies of an incident between them. Momo then notices another proxy war happening between Ah Duo and Lishu's lady-in-waiting groups, and learns Ah Duo's been the longest concubine while Lishu's a young newcomer. She learns they have a daughter and mother-in-law relationship. After receiving an item from a man named Leheku, Momo reunites with Lihua and her ladies-in-waiting. Lihua bestows her with a hairpin and leaves. Gyokyu's ladies-in-waiting are baffled by how many items Momo received and are unsure how Gyokyu will take all this, and Momo visits the party's main event area and observes her surroundings and the people present. She participates in a taste-testing activity and notices another tester struggling, and deduces this dish doesn't have poison in it and receives a soup dish to try. After testing this next dish, Momo learns it has poison in it and flees somewhere. Several men are alarmed by this news and warn everyone. Meanwhile, Jinshi arrives and learns one of the ministers drank the poisoned soup and collapsed, and Jinshi finds Momo and says he's taking her to the infirmary. Momo ensures to him that she's okay and wishes she could have swallowed the poison. He informs Momo that someone drank the soup to see if Momo was lying and ended up collapsing, and Momo takes out a bag of emetic agents and says the minister should use it. After ridding herself of all the poison in her body, Momo asks Jinshi to bring Lishu to her to discuss the poisoned soup incident. Lishu arrives and Momo notices she has bumps on her arm, and she deduces Lishu's allergic to the mackerel they eat at the garden party. Momo realizes Lishu's original dish was swapped with Gyokyu's meal. Lishu's food taster feels terrible for not realizing this sooner. Momo tells the taster she's prepared a note for her to take with her for emergencies. Lishu and her taster leave, and Jinshi ponders if someone had the meal swapped and poisoned on purpose. Jinshi and his cohort are contemplating if this is related to the scenario involving the wooden tablets. Momo wakes up from a dream involving her and her father. She visits Gyokyu and asks her if she can use the parlor, and Gyokyu allows Momo to use it and asks Han-Ming to escort her to the area. Momo is presented with the same soup someone sabotaged at the garden party, and she investigates the bowl and concludes 4 people made contact with it. She believes an outsider who wasn't supposed to touch the dish poisoned it. Momo believes Lishu's taste tester swapped the meal on purpose for harassment purposes, but didn't know it was poisoned, and Gaoshin can't believe a lady-in-waiting would attempt to bully a high-ranking concubine. Momo reminds Gaoshin that this is an assumption on her part, and she believes Lishu's ladies-in-waiting have a vendetta against her, though concubines typically have beef with other concubines. Momo believes their grudge stems from Lishu becoming the previous emperor's concubine at a young age. Since she's planning to wed her deceased husband's son now, her ladies-in-waiting may find her actions distasteful, and Momo says she protected Lishu's food taster the prior day because she understands they live demanding lives. Gaoshin visits Jinshi and tells him everything Momo told him about the incident, and Jinshi believes this is all an inside job and wishes he wasn't so tired. The next morning, Momo converses with Seolin about hairpins. Seolin says she can leave the rear palace now, and Momo begs her to explain what she means by that. And Seolin says when a woman receives a hairpin, it received permission to leave the palace as long as they're being escorted by a specific male. She says Momo can ask someone to remove her from the palace too, and someone informs Leheku that Momo wants to meet him somewhere, and Leheku wonders what he must do to turn down Momo. Momo visits Leheku, hands him a hairpin, and asks if she can visit her home. Leheku's not pleased that Momo's trying to exploit him just so she can visit her family. Momo offers Leheku a chance to attend a flower viewing session at the Verdigris house with 3 highly established princesses named Mei, Joka, and Perrin, and Leheku accepts Momo's offer. Jinshi arrives at Gyokyu's quarters and she tells him Momo left the palace and is on a 3-day homecoming trip. Leheku and Momo arrive at the Verdigris house and Leheku leaves with a girl to meet with Perrin, and the elderly proprietor asks Momo why she vanished from the district for months. Momo gives the proprietor half of her salary for assisting her with Leheku's dating regimes, and she tells Momo to visit her father. Momo spends time catching up with her father on her predicament. While asleep, her father is puzzled that Momo ended up at the rear palace and holds the position she has currently. Momo observes her father tending crops in the field and bumps into a young girl who takes her somewhere. She learns several people are severely ill and need her help, and Momo assists the others with tending to these injured folks' problems. After telling Momo the people are more stable now, her female helpers leave the room to make everyone tea, and Momo examines the area for clues about what happened. The young girl returns and gives Momo the charcoal she needs, and Momo jots something down on a text plate and asks the girl to fetch her father. Later, her father arrives with some herbs and they plan to mix it with Momo's charcoal concoction. They leave to feed the injured people this medicine, and the women from earlier feed the injured people the medicine while Momo and her father share theories about what happened to them. Momo and her father visit an elderly woman for tea, and she contemplates the injured folks' situation more and spots the young girl outside of the women's quarters. She leaves for a bit to follow the girl, and Momo spots her with a knife and notices she's attempting to murder the injured male for some reason. They tussle for a bit, causing one of the women to stop them, and the woman asks Momo to chat with her. The woman reveals the injured man was a womanizer. She reveals the young girl's older sister was a victim of his and that she sought vengeance against him. After discussing things with the two, Momo returns home with her father and acknowledges how dangerous the little girl's tactics are. At home, Momo ponders the situation and realizes that it was actually a murder and not a double suicide. After contemplating it more in town, Momo visits a bathhouse to unwind, and she meets Mei, and the two chat with each other about life. Momo returns to the palace with Leheku the next day, and she notices Jinshi's infuriated with her. He asks Momo to meet him in the parlor. Momo visits Jinshi, who is upset Momo doesn't understand the significance behind hairpins and that she chose to go home with Leheku and not him, and tells Jinshi she offered Leheku a night of blissful dreams, making Jinshi believe the two got intimate with each other. She leaves the room and Han-Ming bonks her on the head, and Gyokyu laughs at her. Gaoshin asks Jinshi when will he start working and stop sulking about Momo, but a man rushes into Jinshi's quarters and informs him that something terrible happened to Kaonan. After witnessing what happened to himself, Jinshi and Gaoshin inform Gyokyu and Momo about his death the following day. Although Momo doesn't feel bad about Kaonan's death, she explains the issues of consuming too much alcohol. Jinshi tells Momo that Kaonan knows how to handle alcohol and argues someone might be responsible for his death, and Jinshi presents Momo with the alcohol Kaonan consumed and shares more info about what he and Gaoshin found at the crime scene, and they head to Jinshi's quarters to discuss the situation further. Gaoshin presents Momo with a full report while Jinshi shows her Kaonan's broken bottle. After licking and examining the broken bottle, Momo deduces there was too much salt in the drink, leading to Kaonan's death, and she argues that Kaonan didn't know how much salt was in the drink after learning about his habits through the report Gaoshin gave her. Momo argues that Kaonan lost the ability to taste salt, and this is possibly due to Kaonan experiencing immense stress or having an imbalanced diet over losing his family. Momo says she's not responsible for finding the culprit who added the extra salt to his drink, but confirms someone did do it, and Gaoshin leaves the room and Momo spots Jinshi wearing a talisman signaling to her that he's in mourning, and Jinshi reveals that Kaonan was an important person to him. Jinshi presents Momo with a gourd of alcohol for her assistance, and after an amusing discussion over an alcohol-themed bill, we see a woman drowning. Someone informs the palace's doctor and Momo about the incident. Momo refuses to touch the body because she wants to abide by her apothecary master's orders, and she says humans can become ingredients for medicine as we cut to a scene of her father knowing she'd start robbing graves if she started touching dead bodies. Momo, Jinshi, and Gaoshin return to Jinshi's quarters to discuss this incident, while Momo's unsure if the maid committed suicide or if she was murdered. She walks by a plant and contemplates the idea of death and its relation to fate, and after contemplating all the cases she's been involved with, Momo asks Jinshi if she could die by poison if the time ever called for it. Jinshi doesn't know why Momo would suggest such a thing, and Momo leaves and she reflects on the maid's predicament and says she heard rumors that she was at the garden party poison incident. Moreover, she heard people found a suicide note at the scene, so people ruled her case as suicide and closed it. As for the burnt arm case, Gaoshin informs Jinshi that they found the culprit behind it all, and he says the Garnet Pavilion's Fengming, the head lady in waiting for Lady Ah Duo, is the perpetrator, and Jinshi pondering the situation further. Momo and Seolin discusses Lady Ah Duo's servant's suicide case, and Seolin says she heard that Lady Ah Duo might get replaced by a younger concubine soon, but Momo believes Ah Duo might lose her title because she might be incapable of producing children, which is a must for the rear palace's system. She wonders if Lady Liuo will meet a similar fate if she can't produce a baby, and Momo gives Seolin leftovers from a previous tea party event and departs. She returns to the Jade Pavilion, discovering they're holding a second tea party, and she learns Lady Lishu's attending this one and examines everyone's behavior at this party. While everyone's seated, Momo studies Lishu's servants and ponders if they're still actively harassing her like before. After Lady Gyokyu serves Lishu some honey-flavored tea, Lishu refuses to drink it. Momo notices Lishu's servants gossiping about Lishu's behavior toward the beverage. Therefore, Momo secretly assists Lishu by signaling to Gyokyu that the drink is no good, and Gyokyu asks her Aelin to provide them with hot ginger tea. Gyokyu ladies-in-waiting kick Momo out of the area so she can get rest, and Momo encounters Jinshi, who brings up Lady Ah Duo's servant who allegedly committed suicide. After sharing her opinion, Jinshi tells Momo to help the Garnet Pavilion with a few tasks. Momo visits Ah Duo's pavilion and examines everyone. After greeting Ah Duo's head lady-in-waiting Fengming leads Momo and others to a book room and asks them to air the books out and other tasks. While tackling these duties, Momo examines her surroundings and wonders if the mastermind behind the Lishu poison incident came from here, and she breaks down the possibilities of Fengming being the culprit, highlighting what she gained from committing such an act. After learning about Fengming's history with honey, Momo spots Lishu at the Garnet Pavilion. Then she reports her findings to Jinshi. Although she doesn't have much to report, she tells Jinshi it's possible Fengming could be the culprit, and Jinshi presents Momo with a honey reward, but Momo refuses to eat the honey from his fingers. While uncomfortable, Momo conjures up a theory about the current predicament, but suddenly, Gyokyu arrives and scolds Jinshi for his strange actions, and Momo departs and meets with Lishu. She asks her questions about her concerns about honey, and Lishu says she avoids honey because many nurses told her it's a life-threatening dish. Lishu's ladies-in-waiting scold Momo for probing Lishu, and Momo knows Lishu's ladies-in-waiting couldn't care less about Lishu. However, she tells them if they have issues with her asking Lishu questions of this nature, they can report their issues with Momo to Jinshi. After asking Lishu about her relationship with Fengming, Momo takes a stroll around the palace with Gaoshan, and she asks Gaoshan if he knows a place where she can obtain data about past events that occurred in the rear palace. Gaoshan takes Momo to the court library, and Momo learns about the current emperor and Abduo's foster sibling relationship. Moreover, she learns Dr. Lumen, her adoptive father, helped Abduo give birth to her son, and Momo questions her father's actions. Momo arrives at the Garnet Pavilion to deliver something to Lady Abduo and meets Fengming and tells her she'd like to discuss things with her. She examines the area and notices Fengming's packed her belongings and asks Fengming when she plans on leaving. Momo informs Fengming that she knows Abduo is being ordered to leave the pavilion to make way for the new high-ranking concubine. Additionally, Momo knows Abduo can't produce children and asks her for more information about what happened on the day Abduo was attempting to give birth, and Momo argues this matter is relevant to her since her father attended the birth and was responsible for helping Abduo see it through. After bringing up Abduo's child's early demise, she asks Fengming if she feels guilty for failing to look after him while Abduo was unwell at the time. Then Momo delves deeper into Abduo's child's cause of death and argues against face powder being the cause, and she shows Fengming a box with a flour and syrup inside. Momo highlights how some flours and syrups contain material that can be harmful to children. Therefore, due to countless mistakes including his treatment during Abduo's child's birth, Momo's father Lumen was banished from the rear palace. Momo says someone informed Fengming early on about this poisonous flower phenomenon, but Fengming covered it all up to prevent Abduo from discovering that Fengming is responsible for her child's demise. Momo reveals the person who relayed this honey and poison intel to Fengming was Lishu, and she highlights how Lishu and Abduo had a great connection. However, when Lishu told Fengming her experience with honey as a baby, Fengming forcefully turned Lishu away from the pavilion. Upon learning of Lishu's new concubine status and fearing her past mistakes would come to light, she poisoned Lishu's suit during the garden party event. After hearing Momo out, Fengming informs her how much she idolizes Abduo and how disappointed she is in herself for taking away her child. After presenting Fengming with an ultimatum for her crimes, Momo returns to her quarters. The next day, Momo visits Jinshi to discuss Abduo and Fengming's outcome. At night, Momo sits atop the rear palace's wall. Abduo approaches Momo and takes a minute to reflect on everything that's happened so far. Abduo departs and Momo does the same, but she trips but gets saved by Jinshi. The two share a somewhat intimate moment for the night. In the morning, Momo attends Abduo's departure event, and she hands Jinshi her concubine crown and notices the two look alike. She questions if Jinshi was involved in the baby incident in some form. However, she drops this thought when she and everyone else notice Lishu running toward Abduo, and we cut to Gaoshan and Jinshi in Jinshi's quarters. Gaoshan presents Jinshi with documents about Fengming's family and connections, while Jinshi looks at a note with Momo's name on it. We see Jinshi inform the audience what happened to Fengming's relatives after she was executed, and he explains they were corporally punished and robbed of their wealth. Jinshi says he has the names of everyone in Fengming's family, in addition to those who are connected with them, and the people who kidnapped Momo have connections with Fengming's family. Jinshi questions if he should cover this intel up or not. By hiding this information, Jinshi argues he'll prevent Momo from leaving the rear palace, but he's conflicted because he's unsure if that's what Momo would want. We cut to Momo and Shidolin discussing a mass firing event that happened recently, and it involved people with ties to Fengming's family getting dismissed because of their connections with them. Concerned about her predicament, Momo leaves and confronts Jinshi about the mass firing incident. She asks him what'll happen to her. Jinshi hands her the document he received from Gaoshan, and she asks him if she'll be fired because of her ties to the Fengming family. Jinshi doesn't give her a solid answer, but he asks her what she wants, and Momo doesn't want to lose the good life she has at the Jade Pavilion, but doesn't want to look like she's begging to keep her job, so Momo tells Jinshi she's willing to do whatever he says and asks him not to fire her. Unfortunately, Momo loses her position and returns to Pleasure District, and Gaoshan recognizes Jinshi's upset about this ordeal and realizes he didn't force Momo to stay because he didn't want to use her. Elsewhere, Momo's getting pampered by one of the three princesses of the Verdigris house, and she plans to attend a nobility banquet with them, and Momo says she received a lot of money when she left the rear palace, which helped her prevent herself from being sold off. Momo and the others arrive at the nobility banquet, and we receive a montage of the three princesses performing for the nobles while Momo is shown assisting the nobles with their needs. Momo notices a man looking depressed and interacts with him, and she learns it's Jinshi, and he asks her why she chose to flee the palace and why she's dressed like a courtesan, and Momo says she's earning money and doesn't take personal customers. Jinshi asks Momo if he can buy her and Momo thinks it would be a good idea to work there again and wonders why she quit, but Momo reminds him that he's the one who fired her. Momo tells Jinshi that the only thing she doesn't like about her job is her inability to experiment with poison, and Jinshi laughs and tells Momo that experimenting with poison is a ridiculous desire. After that, the two get moderately intimate with each other, resulting in some folks taking note of their situation. After the three princesses interrogate Momo about Jinshi, we cut to Momo working on something for Grams at the Verdigris house. Then Grams arrives and asks Momo to look at a patient for her. Afterwards, Momo baths in the bathing house and reflects on her experience at the rear palace, and Grams arrives and the two discuss Momo's debt repayment plans and if she's interested in returning to the rear palace. At night, Momo heads outside to ponder her experiences at the rear palace, and Momo questions what life is planned for her and heads inside her adoptive father's home. The next day, Jinshi and Gaoshan arrive at Grams' workplace, and he presents Grams with a briefcase full of money and Momo with a strange plant, and Momo assumes Jinshi wants to purchase her. But that's it for this part. Let me know in the comment if you want the next part of this anime. And as always, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video.